"A woman can't make that shot," the SEAL commander had said repeatedly. But when nuclear missiles were 30 seconds from launch, he desperately turned to the female sniper he'd ignored. "You're our only hope now." Meet Staff Sergeant Sophia "Ghost" Vasquez, 28 years old, dark hair always braided in tactical style, brown eyes that could calculate ballistic trajectories at distances that challenged the laws of physics. For 5 years, she had served as a precision marksman with the Army's most elite sniper units. But to most SEAL commanders, she was still just the female sniper who didn't belong in operations that required impossible shots under ultimate pressure. Sophia's path to becoming one of the world's deadliest snipers had begun in the mountains of Montana, where her father, a retired Marine Scout sniper, had taught her that precision shooting was as much about mathematics and patience as it was about marksmanship. By age 16, she was making consistent hits at ranges that impressed veteran hunters and competitive shooters throughout the region. During Sophia's childhood, her father had taught her that extreme long-range shooting was as much science as art. Every weekend, they would travel to remote mountain locations where she learned to read wind patterns that most people couldn't detect, calculate atmospheric effects on bullet trajectory, and understand how environmental factors like temperature and humidity could affect precision at extended ranges. "Misha," he would tell her as they practiced at extreme ranges, "a true sniper doesn't just hit targets. A true sniper understands that sometimes one bullet can change the course of history. The responsibility that comes with that capability is greater than the skill required to make the shot." The training had been comprehensive and demanding, covering not just marksmanship but also fieldcraft, camouflage, stalking techniques, and the mathematical principles that governed ballistic trajectories at ranges where most shooters had never attempted engagement. Sophia learned to calculate bullet drop measured in dozens of feet, wind drift that could displace projectiles by meters, and environmental factors that conventional training programs didn't address. Miguel's training methodology was unique in its integration of academic study with practical application. Sophia learned ballistic physics from university-level textbooks, studied meteorology to understand wind patterns and atmospheric conditions, and mastered mathematical concepts that allowed her to make calculations in her head that other snipers required computers to achieve. By her 18th birthday, Sophia was consistently making hits at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters using civilian equipment that was inferior to military sniper systems. Her mathematical understanding of ballistics had impressed university professors when she briefly considered studying aerospace engineering before deciding to enlist in the Army. Sophia had enlisted in the Army at age 18, driven by a desire to serve her country and follow in her father's footsteps. Her initial marksmanship scores were so exceptional that she was immediately recommended for sniper training, where she broke multiple records for accuracy at extended ranges and tactical proficiency under stress. During sniper school, Sophia had demonstrated capabilities that exceeded standard military requirements. Her longest confirmed training shot was 3,200 meters, achieved using environmental calculations that her instructors incorporated into advanced curriculum. But despite her proven abilities, she consistently faced skepticism from male commanders who questioned whether women could handle the psychological pressure of precision shooting in combat. The skepticism wasn't limited to her gender. It also extended to her unconventional approach to sniper operations. Sophia's training emphasized mathematical precision and environmental analysis to a degree that some instructors considered excessive. Her detailed calculations and methodical preparation were sometimes viewed as overthinking rather than the systematic approach that enabled her extraordinary accuracy. Military doctrine traditionally emphasized speed and aggression in sniper operations, but Sophia's approach prioritized precision and calculation over rapid engagement. Her methods required more time for preparation, but produced results that consistently exceeded conventional expectations for long-range accuracy. Sophia's call sign Ghost had been earned during her second deployment to Syria when she had provided overwatch for special operations forces conducting a high-risk extraction. Her shots had been so precise and her positioning so perfect that enemy forces never detected her presence, leading to mission reports that described her as a ghost who eliminated threats before they knew they were being hunted. The Syria deployment had demonstrated Sophia's ability to operate in complex urban environments where conventional sniper tactics were insufficient. She had developed techniques for shooting through urban terrain that required understanding how buildings, vehicles, and atmospheric conditions in cities affected bullet trajectories at extended ranges. Urban sniper operations presented unique challenges that required adaptation of techniques developed for rural and mountainous terrain. Sophia had learned to account for heat distortion from concrete surfaces, wind patterns created by building structures, and atmospheric variations caused by urban pollution and industrial activity. Over 5 years of operational deployments, Sophia had accumulated 67 confirmed kills, making her one of the most lethal precision marksmen in U.S. military history. Her innovations in extreme long-range shooting had been studied by sniper schools worldwide, and her understanding of ballistic physics had contributed to improvements in equipment and training protocols. Her approach to sniper operations had evolved beyond conventional military doctrine, incorporating scientific principles that most marksmen never studied. Sophia understood atmospheric physics, wind pattern analysis, and ballistic mathematics at a level that allowed her to make shots that other snipers considered impossible. Sophia's reputation had begun to influence military thinking about the potential for extreme long-range engagement, challenging assumptions about the practical limits of precision shooting. Her techniques were being studied not just for their tactical applications, but for their potential to redefine strategic thinking about asymmetric warfare and precision engagement. But despite her proven track record, Sophia still faced resistance from commanders who believed that certain missions required traditional sniper capabilities rather than the precision shooting innovations that she had developed. Commander David Steele Patterson was exactly the type of officer who represented institutional resistance to changing military culture. At 42 years old, with 18 years of SEAL operations and a chest full of medals, he commanded SEAL Team 7 with old-school attitudes that prioritized physical aggression and conventional tactics over innovative approaches that challenged established doctrine. Patterson had built his reputation during an era when special operations were exclusively male domains, and his worldview had been shaped by decades of successful missions that relied on overwhelming firepower and traditional tactical solutions. He respected competence and dedication, but his definition of both was limited by experiences that hadn't included working with female operators in critical roles. Patterson's leadership style emphasized aggressive tactics and conventional solutions that had proven successful during his career. He believed that the most critical missions required personnel who could handle extreme physical and psychological stress using methods that had been tested in previous operations. Patterson's skepticism toward innovative approaches wasn't entirely unreasonable. His experience had taught him that experimental tactics often failed under the pressure of real-world operations, where proven methods provided the reliability necessary for mission success. However, his reluctance to consider new capabilities meant that he sometimes overlooked solutions that could enhance operational effectiveness. The crisis that would test both Sophia's capabilities and Patterson's prejudices began with intelligence reports indicating that a rogue nuclear scientist had stolen weapons-grade uranium and was planning to detonate a nuclear device in a major population center. Dr. Viktor Kozlov, a former Soviet weapons designer, had been selling nuclear technology to terrorist organizations while developing his own capability to trigger a nuclear exchange between world powers. Intelligence agencies had tracked Kozlov to a remote facility in the mountains of Central Asia, where he was preparing to launch a nuclear-tipped missile that would strike a major city and be attributed to a hostile nation, triggering automatic nuclear retaliation protocols that could escalate into global nuclear war. The facility was located in terrain that made conventional military assault impossible. Surrounded by mountains and protected by sophisticated air defense systems, Kozlov's compound could only be approached through a narrow valley that was covered by multiple defensive positions. Any conventional attack would give Kozlov sufficient warning to launch his nuclear missile before assault forces could reach the launch facility. The only tactical solution was a precision sniper shot that could eliminate Kozlov before he could initiate the launch sequence. But the shot would have to be made from an extreme range, over 7,000 meters, to avoid detection by his defensive systems. Such a shot would require perfect environmental calculations, flawless equipment, and marksmanship skills that existed at the very edge of human capability. Patterson's initial mission planning had focused on male snipers from his own unit, despite intelligence briefings that emphasized the extreme technical challenges of the required shot. His assumption was that the mission required someone with extensive SEAL training and combat experience, qualifications that he associated with male operators rather than Army snipers, regardless of their proven capabilities. "We need our best long-range shooter for this mission," Patterson had announced during the initial briefing. "Petty Officer Rodriguez has the most experience with extreme range shots in our unit." Sophia had been present during the briefing as part of the joint task force assembled for the operation, but Patterson had consistently directed tactical discussions toward his own personnel rather than considering capabilities that existed outside his immediate command structure. Petty Officer Marcus Rodriguez was Patterson's designated marksman, a competent sniper with solid training and reliable performance in conventional operations. His longest confirmed kill was 1,847 meters, achieved during counterterrorism operations in Iraq, using standard military sniper equipment and techniques. But Rodriguez had never attempted shots approaching 7,000 meters, and his training had not included the advanced ballistic calculations and environmental analysis techniques that Sophia had developed during her career, focusing on extreme long-range precision shooting. "Sir," Sophia had said during the planning session, "I've made shots at ranges exceeding 3,200 meters under combat conditions. My experience with extreme long-range ballistics might be relevant for this mission profile." Patterson's response had been dismissive. "Sergeant Vasquez, this isn't about individual marksmanship records. This mission requires someone with SEAL training and the psychological toughness to perform under ultimate pressure. A woman can't make that shot when the stakes are nuclear war." Sophia had accepted Patterson's decision professionally, but privately she had begun conducting her own analysis of the tactical situation. Using satellite imagery and environmental data, she calculated wind patterns, atmospheric conditions, and ballistic trajectories for a 7,000-meter shot from various positions around Kozlov's facility. Her analysis revealed that the shot was technically possible, but would require perfect coordination of multiple environmental factors and equipment capabilities that existed at the absolute limits of current technology. The margin for error would be measured in millimeters, and success would depend on calculations that most snipers had never attempted. For 3 days, Sophia had been positioned as backup overwatch while Patterson's team prepared for their primary mission approach. During this time, she had continued refining her ballistic calculations, studying wind patterns through her scope, and identifying the optimal shooting position for a 7,000-meter engagement. The environmental conditions during those 3 days had been constantly changing, requiring Sophia to continuously update her calculations to account for shifting wind patterns, atmospheric pressure variations, and temperature fluctuations that would affect bullet trajectory at extreme ranges. Her preparation had been so thorough that she had developed multiple contingency plans for different environmental scenarios. Sophia's mathematical models had become increasingly sophisticated as she gathered more environmental data. She was accounting for factors that most snipers never considered: the effect of altitude on air density, temperature gradients that created atmospheric layers with different refractive properties, and barometric pressure variations that could affect bullet stability during its extended flight time. Patterson's team had attempted multiple approaches to Kozlov's facility, but each effort had been detected by defensive systems that forced them to withdraw before reaching effective range. Conventional assault tactics were proving insufficient against an enemy who had chosen his defensive position specifically to neutralize traditional military approaches. On the 4th day of operations, intelligence reports indicated that Kozlov was preparing to execute his nuclear launch within hours. Satellite imagery showed increased activity around the missile facility, with technical personnel making final preparations for a launch that could trigger global nuclear war. Patterson's final assault attempt had been detected and repelled by Kozlov's defensive forces, leaving the SEAL team pinned down at a distance that made conventional shooting impossible. Radio intercepts indicated that Kozlov was beginning his final launch preparations, with nuclear missiles programmed to strike targets that would guarantee massive retaliation and escalating nuclear exchange. "Command, this is Steele." Patterson's voice carried desperation and exhaustion from 4 days of failed tactical attempts. "We cannot reach effective range without being detected. Request immediate air support for final assault." "Steele, command." "Air support is unavailable due to enemy air defense systems. You are authorized for any tactical solution that prevents nuclear launch." Patterson looked around at his pinned-down team, then at Sophia, who had been maintaining overwatch from a position 7,000 meters from Kozlov's facility. For 4 days, he had dismissed her capabilities, but now conventional solutions had been exhausted and nuclear war was imminent. The realization that he needed Sophia's unique capabilities was as humbling as it was terrifying. Patterson had spent his career believing that the most critical missions required traditional SEAL approaches, but now he was facing a situation where innovation and extreme technical skill mattered more than conventional training. "Vasquez," Patterson called over the radio, his voice carrying the weight of impending nuclear holocaust. "Can you make a 7,000-meter shot?" Sophia had been waiting for this moment, tracking wind patterns and atmospheric conditions while calculating the ballistic trajectory that could save the world. "Commander, I've been calculating this shot for 3 days. Wind is variable between 8 and 12 miles per hour from the northwest. Target is mobile but following predictable patterns. Shot is technically feasible with proper environmental compensation." "Vasquez, if you miss, nuclear missiles launch in 30 minutes. This isn't about marksmanship records anymore. This is about preventing global nuclear war." Sophia adjusted her scope for the extreme range, making calculations that incorporated atmospheric pressure, humidity, temperature gradients, and the rotation of the Earth itself. At 7,000 meters, even minor environmental factors could cause a miss measured in meters rather than millimeters. "Commander, I understand the stakes. I've been preparing for this shot my entire career." Through her scope, Sophia could see Kozlov moving between the launch control facility and the missile preparation area. Intelligence reports indicated that he was conducting final system checks before initiating a launch sequence that would be irreversible once started. The technical challenges of a 7,000-meter shot were beyond anything attempted in conventional military operations. Sophia would be shooting at a distance where gravitational drop measured over 150 feet, where wind drift could displace the bullet by dozens meters, and where the target would be barely visible even through high magnification optics. Her father's training had prepared her for exactly this type of shot. Years of practicing in Montana's mountain environment had taught her to read atmospheric conditions that most snipers couldn't detect, to calculate ballistic trajectories that accounted for factors that standard training ignored, and to maintain the psychological focus required for shooting under ultimate pressure. "Steele, this is Ghost. I have target acquisition, beginning final calculations." Sophia controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow to the rhythm her father had trained into her during thousands of hours of practice. The crosshairs settled on Kozlov's center mass, but at 7,000 meters, she was aiming at a point in space where she calculated he would be when her bullet arrived nearly 8 seconds after firing. The mathematical precision required was staggering. Sophia had to account for bullet drop, wind drift, atmospheric density, temperature variations, barometric pressure, and the Coriolis effect caused by the Earth's rotation. A miscalculation of even 1 degree would result in a miss that could trigger nuclear war. Ghost, Steele. Nuclear launch sequence has been initiated. You have approximately 20 seconds before the launch becomes irreversible. Sophia made her final scope adjustments, confirming environmental calculations that represented the culmination of everything her father had taught her about precision shooting. This wasn't just the longest shot ever attempted, it was the most important shot in human history. Steele, Ghost. Shot is ready. Confirm authorization for engagement. Ghost, you are authorized to engage. The world is counting on you. Sophia exhaled half her breath and held it, finger applying steady pressure to the trigger of her custom rifle. 7,000 meters away, Dr. Viktor Kozlov was conducting final checks on a nuclear missile that could end civilization. The rifle fired. For nearly 8 seconds, Sophia tracked the bullet's invisible trajectory through her scope, knowing that the fate of humanity was traveling through the air at 3,000 feet per second toward a target that represented the difference between continued civilization and nuclear holocaust. 7,000 meters away, Dr. Viktor Kozlov dropped instantly as Sophia's bullet found its mark with mathematical precision that defied probability. The nuclear launch sequence stopped with his finger still reaching for the final activation switch. "Target down," Sophia announced calmly. "Nuclear launch has been prevented." The radio silence that followed lasted almost a minute as the implications of her shot became clear to everyone monitoring the operation. A single bullet, fired by a female sniper whom Patterson had initially dismissed, had just prevented nuclear war and saved potentially billions of lives. Ghost Steel, confirmed target neutralized. Confirmed Steel. Dr. Kozlov is down. Nuclear facility is secure. Mission accomplished. Patterson's voice when he responded carried a mixture of relief, amazement, and the humility that comes from realizing how wrong fundamental assumptions can be. Ghost, that was the most important shot in human history. You just saved the world. Sophia maintained her overwatch position while Patterson's team secured Kozlov's facility, ensuring that the nuclear weapons and launch systems were properly secured by explosive ordnance disposal specialists. Her role in preventing nuclear war was just beginning. The shot had been the critical moment, but follow-up operations were equally important for ensuring global security. The technical analysis of Sophia's shot would become a classified case study examined by ballistic experts and military tacticians worldwide. At 7,000 meters, her bullet had traveled for 7.8 seconds, dropped over 200 feet, and been deflected by wind conditions that changed multiple times during its flight path. But Sophia had calculated all of these factors with precision that allowed her bullet to strike within 2 centimeters of her intended point of impact. The mathematical accuracy required had been beyond anything previously achieved in military operations, representing a combination of technical skill and environmental analysis that redefined the possibilities of precision shooting. 6 months later, Staff Sergeant Sophia Vasquez was promoted to Sergeant First Class and awarded the Medal of Honor for preventing nuclear war through precision marksmanship that saved potentially billions of lives. But more importantly, she never again heard a SEAL commander question whether women could handle the most critical military missions. Commander Patterson became one of Sophia's strongest advocates, frequently telling other officers that the most dangerous assumption military leaders could make was dismissing capabilities based on gender rather than proven performance. His experience had taught him that innovation and technical excellence often came from sources that conventional wisdom overlooked. Today, Master Sergeant Sophia "Ghost" Vasquez runs the military's most advanced extreme long-range shooting program, teaching snipers that the boundaries of what's possible exist primarily in the limitations of imagination rather than the laws of physics. Her students learn that precision shooting at extreme ranges requires not just marksmanship skills, but mathematical calculation, environmental analysis, and the psychological strength to perform when the consequences of failure extend far beyond individual missions. Have you ever been dismissed by people who couldn't see past their preconceptions, only to prove that your capabilities exceeded their limited imagination? Sophia's story reminds us that sometimes the most critical moments in history depend on people who were underestimated because they didn't fit conventional expectations about who could handle ultimate responsibility. The SEAL commander who repeatedly said, "A woman can't make that shot," learned that gender was irrelevant when the fate of humanity was measured in millimeters of ballistic precision. Sometimes the most important bullets are fired by the people others thought least likely to save the world. If you believe that true capability reveals itself when everything is on the line, share this story. Because somewhere, someone is being underestimated based on assumptions rather than proven ability, not knowing that their moment to save the world might be approaching faster than a bullet traveling 7,000 meters to prevent nuclear war. Sophia Vasquez didn't just make an impossible shot, she proved that the most dangerous limitations are the ones we place on ourselves and others based on prejudice rather than performance. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.